Hello, and welcome to your intervention. You and I should have had this conversation some time ago here. When you refer to somebody as a dismissive avoidant, you're actually not giving them full credit for what they really are. A dismissive, cold fish. Don't make excuses for them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify things here. Let's go through let's go through the definition of a dismissive avoidant, and let's really see that person for what they really are. A dismissive, cold human being who, quite frankly, wasn't very into you. That's really all it is here. No more fancy terms, no more hiding behind the truth here. That person just wasn't really into you, because if they were, they probably would not have been so dismissive. So in this channel, we're not going to make excuses for people. I'm not going to let you make excuses for why you allowed crappy behavior. We're going to help see things for what they really are and what, quite frankly, they were not. So, dismissive avoidant is a term from attachment theory. First and foremost, it's called attachment theory, not attachment fact, okay? Dismissive avoidant describes a pattern of behavior that stems from early experience, often involving an emotional neglect or discouragement of dependency. Now, listen, let's be straightforward here. If you're making excuses for somebody who treated you like crap, well, and you're going to let them hide behind bad behavior because they had a tough childhood, I don't know about you, but I had a real tough childhood. I didn't always get picked first on the team. I didn't always get appreciated. I got all those things here. We all had challenges. Why are we allowing that person to hide behind bad behavior? Aren't you holding yourself accountable for bad behavior? Aren't you trying to fix things and improve yourself? Why are you letting them get away with bad behavior simply because they didn't get the dessert they really wanted? Anyway, let's continue here. People with dismissive attachment tend to avoid emotional intimacy. They tend to downplay the importance of relationships. They tend to value independence above connection. And they tend to shut down or withdraw when others get too close. That just sounds like somebody who's really just not into you. Years ago, they had a very famous book called He's Just Not Into You. And for you men out there watching this video here, we could have made the other version called She's Just Not That Into You. Why are you making an excuse for them when that's really the truth? Because if they really were into you, they wouldn't be so dismissive. They'd be much more engaged. They'd want to engage in intimacy. I mean, think about it. We all have had people in our lives that we dated that we weren't really that into. Obviously, you didn't allow yourself at that time to get into intimate conversations or talk about conversations or topics you weren't quite ready for. You just weren't that into them. Why are you making excuses for why that's right, for why you allowed them to treat you like crap? That's really what happened. You allowed them to treat you like crap, and calling them a dismissive avoidant is you simply giving yourself an excuse for why you allowed bad behavior. The real question you have to ask yourself is, why did you allow that bad behavior? The next question is, what real reason do you have to believe that you're not going to allow that again in the future? Patterns do repeat for a reason. What are you going to do to feel better about yourself so you don't allow people to treat you like some kind of second-class citizen? What are you going to do in the future to stop people from taking you for granted and being dismissive and not appreciating you? What are you going to do to avoid that? Because all that happened here is you allowed somebody to not treat you so well, to be dismissive, to disregard you. That's why you're using that label. You're using it as an excuse to make you feel better about why you allowed subpar behavior. That's just the truth here, okay? And I'm here to help you face that truth now, because if you don't, patterns do repeat for a reason. But let's continue with the definition here. Now, here's the thing. I'm just reading here the definition here. So here's the thing. Having a dismissive avoidant attachment style does not excuse them from being unkind or inconsiderate. It explains behavior. It doesn't justify it. So they don't have a problem. You're just understanding why they treated you the way they did. But again, why did you accept it? Now, here's a know what a dismissive avoidant does. They ghost you. They minimize your feelings. They act cold or indifferent when you're vulnerable, and they make you feel like you're too much for wanting closeness. That just sounds like somebody who's just not very into you. Why are you giving them a fancy label? Why are you making an excuse for why you allowed it? These are all really, really good questions that I don't think your counselor is going to answer too quickly, because real emotional self-worth is not externally dependent. It's internally built like a muscle. And you're not building that on the counselor's couch. Analysis paralysis. But let's continue onward, shall we? Dismissive avoidant can feel indistinguishable from, this is not my words, by the way, can feel indistinguishable from being an you-know-what. By the way, I'm trying to not curse on this video here, because some of you just need to hear a different presentation. You'll finally accept the truth here. And it says right here, and you're right to call that out, being an a-hole, okay? Using psychological terms doesn't mean harmful behavior gets a pass, no matter how polite the label sounds. That's all this is, just a polite label. That said, some dismissive avoidants aren't trying to hurt people. Again, obviously they're not trying to hurt you. They're just not into you. Why are you making excuses for why you allowed somebody to not appreciate you? They're just terrified of needing others. That's not true. They're just terrified of having a real conversation when they don't want to have. Let's repeat that. They're just terrified of having a real conversation they don't want to have because, again, they're just not so into you. Listen, let's just be real here. I had my own experience in my life here, my own journey. I got crapped on many times throughout my life. I went through many cycles of hurt, disappointment. Years ago, I fell head over heels over this woman many years ago that just what I thought was amazing. That I built this fantasy about how we were building something in the future together. But remember, back then, I used to also make excuses for people's bad behavior. I got so sucked into the fantasy of what I thought they could bring to my life that I ignored the obvious warning signs. But I saw them, I just chose to ignore them. And here's what happened basically, by the way. One day, her and I were having lunch, and she told me about a friend of hers that she was friends with since she was a kid, who she coldly cut off because one time they had a disagreement. She cut her off like a cold fish. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't have what I teach here today. I didn't have that emotional strength. And I ignored what was an obvious sign that this person was simply a cold fish, a dismissive cold fish that would dismiss the feelings of others simply because that other person wasn't worth it to them. Now, of course, I ignored that at the time, but what reason would I have to believe that in the future, if her and I had some kind of disagreement or falling out, she would dismiss me and cut me off and ghost me like the cold fish that she was? Of course, I ignored that time, but that came back to bite me later. And when we had our first real disagreement, rather than trying to work things out, she dismissed me, she ghosted me. And for years, I made excuses for her. I didn't call her dismissive avoidant, but she had a tough childhood, she was this. I made excuses and labels for what really was a cold, calculated fish. Anyway, I can laugh about this now here because I know something you do not know here, but I made excuses for that person. And I'm here to make sure that you don't do what I did and make excuses for somebody that is just a dismissive, cold fish. Now, I know why I allowed that bad behavior. I allowed that because I didn't have that emotional strength, that emotional endurance, that emotional self-worth. So I allowed something below what I deserved. What are you allowing that is below what you deserve? I mean, are you really reaching for the sky in this thing called life? Are you really going for your own happily ever after? Are you really going for it all? Or are you allowing less than what you deserve, bad behavior from people, simply because you're afraid to go for what you really want? So I'm not going to let you dismiss yourself, okay? I'm going to start to close up here. Yeah. That's good enough for here today. Let's close up here. Why are you allowing people to disregard you? Why are you allowing people to throw you away like yesterday's trash? Why are you allowing people to not appreciate you? Why are you making excuses for them? I would encourage you at the end of this video, stop offering that label as an excuse to protect yourself from feeling, so you can feel better about why you allowed crappy behavior. You know, patterns do repeat for a reason. You know the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same exact thing the same exact way and expecting a different result. If you keep making excuses for people and keep hiding, I mean, in a pattern or a sequence of bad relationships, there's only one common denominator. And unfortunately for you, that's yourself here. Why do you keep allowing this? You know, if you're in a bad relationship right now and you keep allowing bad behavior from someone over and over again, it's later than you think. If you don't find a real way to build that emotional core, and by the way, unlike the theory of attachment style theory, there's something called the science of neuroplasticity, and its ability to strengthen your brain like a muscle to create the real self-worth you can feel. Just like in a gym, you'd feel your self-worth if you actually lifted weights. You want to lift emotional weights, you have the actual right process, the right workout, and you feel stronger, you'd be far less likely to make excuses for people that quite frankly are just not that into you. Anyway, something to think about. Ciao for now.